I'm delighted to have this opportunity to thank the people of Flanders, and especially Ypres and members of the Last Post Association, for continuing to honor the sacrifice of our fallen.
Got it. You want a brand new 4,000-word dramatic YouTube-style script inspired by the reference, but not copied, written fresh in the same emotional royal drama tone around your title. Since this is creative writing for publishing, I'm putting it in a writing block so it's easy to copy and edit. Hashtag Duke of Kent shocks palace. My crown jewels go to Catherine, not Camilla. The room was full of royalty, tradition, and silence. Every eye inside the palace followed the movement of the elderly duke as he entered slowly, supported by a cane, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. At 90 years old, the Duke of Kent had become a symbol of continuity, one of the last living links to a royal world most people now only read about in history books. He had seen kings crowned. He had seen queens buried. He had watched generations rise, stumble, recover, and disappear. And through all of it, he remained what he had always been, silent. Until now. Because what happened behind palace walls that evening has sent shockwaves through royal circles unlike anything in years. According to insiders, in a private family gathering attended by senior members of the royal family, the Duke made a declaration so unexpected, so direct, that the entire room reportedly fell still. Then came the words nobody expected to hear. My crown jewels go to Catherine, not Camilla. And just like that, everything changed. No raised voice. No dramatic argument. No public confrontation. Just one sentence. Clear. Final. But for those who understand royal history, that sentence carried the weight of an earthquake. Because this was never just about jewelry. It was about legacy, memory, loyalty, and perhaps a final decision decades in the making. To understand why those words landed with such force, you have to understand the man who said them. Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, has spent his entire life in service to the crown. Born into royal duty, raised inside history itself, he lived through wartime Britain, through the reign of King George VI, through the long age of Queen Elizabeth II, and into the modern monarchy of King Charles III. Few people alive understand the monarchy from the inside the way he does. And fewer still understand what royal jewels truly mean. To outsiders, they sparkle under chandeliers and camera flashes. But inside royal families, jewels are never just jewels. They are messages, inheritance, history worn around the neck, power without needing words. Each brooch, necklace, tiara, or bracelet carries the memory of who wore it before. And when one royal woman passes a piece to another, it is often interpreted as trust, approval, recognition, sometimes even succession. That is why what the Duke reportedly decided matters so deeply. Because pieces from his private collection are not state property. They are personal family treasures. And that means he alone decides where they go. Not the king. Not the palace. And certainly not public opinion. Which is why insiders say the Duke spent years considering what would become of the jewels tied to his family's name. Who would preserve them? Who would wear them with meaning? Who would understand what they represented? And over time, one name reportedly kept returning to him. Catherine. Catherine, Princess of Wales. For years, Catherine has developed a reputation inside and outside the monarchy for understanding royal symbolism in a way few modern royals do. Every appearance is carefully considered. Every piece she wears feels chosen with purpose. When she wears pearls once worn by Queen Elizabeth, people notice. When she wears pieces associated with Diana, Princess of Wales, people notice. Not simply because they are beautiful, but because they feel connected to memory, to continuity, to story. And that matters deeply in royal life. People close to the palace say the Duke admired that. He saw someone who didn't wear historic pieces like decoration. She wore them like remembrance. And in a monarchy built on history, that distinction means everything. Meanwhile, tensions around jewelry inside royal circles have long been whispered about, but rarely spoken openly. Who receives access to which tiara? Who wears which brooch at a state dinner? Which piece appears at a coronation? Which remains locked away? These decisions are rarely random. They are often interpreted as signals. And signals inside royal life can say more than speeches. That is why the Duke's reported declaration caused such intense reaction. Because if true, it was more than a private inheritance decision. It was a symbolic endorsement, a gesture toward the future. And according to those familiar with the moment, everyone in the room understood that immediately. Sources describe a silence afterwards so heavy nobody rushed to speak. No one interrupted. No one laughed it off. Because nobody believed he was joking. The Duke had spoken with complete seriousness. And once said, it could not be unsaid. What happened next remains known only to those present. But palace insiders claim the reaction was immediate. Disbelief. And then whispers spreading quickly through private royal circles. By the next morning, discussions about the Duke's wishes had reportedly moved far beyond that room. Staff talked. Advisors talked. Family members quietly compared what they had heard. And one question kept surfacing again and again. Why Catherine? The answer may be simpler than people think. Because for many within the institution, Catherine increasingly represents the monarchy's future in human form. Steady, disciplined, measured, never reckless, rarely emotional in public, able to carry enormous pressure without revealing much, and above all, reliable. That reliability matters deeply to older generations of the royal family, especially those who dedicated their entire lives to service. The Duke of Kent came from a generation where duty came first, always, before comfort, before preference, before personal feelings. That generation valued restraint above performance. And many believe he saw that same discipline reflected in Catherine. Not because she speaks loudly, but because she doesn't. Not because she demands attention, but because she carries it without asking. That kind of presence is difficult to fake, and impossible to maintain over many years unless it's genuine. Perhaps that is why the Duke's reported decision feels so significant. Because it appears deeply personal. Not political. Not strategic. Personal. The judgment of a man who has spent 9 decades observing the monarchy from the inside, and deciding, at last, what becomes of what he leaves behind. And then there is the emotional layer. Because inheritance decisions become heavier with age. Especially when history is attached to objects. Every tiara has a face attached to it. Every jewel remembers a wedding, a portrait, a state banquet, a funeral, a generation. The Duke has outlived nearly everyone connected to many of those memories. Which means he carries not only the collection, but the stories behind it. And perhaps more than anything, he wanted those stories to continue being seen. Not hidden away. Not forgotten. Worn. Remembered. And that may be the heart of this entire story. Legacy. Because royal jewels only stay alive when they remain visible. When they continue appearing at major occasions. When the public sees them and connects the present to the past. Without that, history fades into storage. Locked behind glass or boxed away in private rooms. Beautiful, but silent. Catherine, many believe, would not allow that. She would bring meaning to the pieces. Context to them. Continuation. And if that is what the Duke wanted, then his reported choice makes perfect sense. Of course, none of this has been formally confirmed by Buckingham Palace. And likely never will be. The palace rarely comments on private family inheritance discussions, especially not where jewelry is concerned. Royal silence is often deliberate. But silence inside the monarchy does not stop speculation. Sometimes, it fuels it. And this story has only grown louder. Because even without official statements, the symbolism is impossible to ignore. A senior royal patriarch. A deeply personal jewelry collection. A reported declaration naming Catherine. And a decision that could shape how future generations see these historic pieces. Whether the jewels are transferred soon, or remain with the Duke for years, the message itself has already landed. And messages matter. Especially in royal life. For the public, The story feels dramatic because of the names involved. But inside palace walls, it feels bigger than drama. It feels like legacy being placed into waiting hands. Like an elder deciding who carries memory forward. Like history choosing its next keeper. And perhaps that is why this moment has captured so much attention. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the palace whispers, beneath the fascination with crowns and jewels, it becomes something deeply human. A man reaching the final chapter of a remarkable life. Looking at everything he inherited, everything he protected, everything he watched survive, and deciding where it goes next. Who receives the objects? Who carries the story? Who keeps memory alive? That decision belongs to him. And if insiders are right, he has already made it. My crown jewels go to Catherine, not Camilla. 7 words. Quietly spoken, yet powerful enough to shake the palace. And if true, those 7 words may one day be remembered not simply as an inheritance decision, but as the Duke of Kent's final statement about legacy, history, and the future of the British monarchy itself. And perhaps somewhere inside the palace tonight, those words are still echoing through the corridors, waiting for history to decide what happens next.